the committee felt it was important for the state to continue to remain neutral on all labor disputes and to support North Dakota's right-to-work principles that have been upheld by this body for decades, and asks that this body supports these amendments today.
Further discussion, Senator Murphy.
Mr. President, this is about economic development and about treating people humanely, in my opinion. We've only had a couple of lockouts in the state's history. They're very rare. There are at least a couple different kinds of people in this chamber and in this state. The entrepreneurs who take land, labor, and capital and are able with that to fashion something that creates jobs and makes our economy go. Many people in this chamber are entrepreneurs. Thank goodness for them. Most people are not. They work for entrepreneurs and for companies formed by others. I'm one of those people. Many of you may have done what I have done for work, whether it's paint houses and bartend, tie steel on the highway, do farm labor, any number of things. Now I'm a teacher, as many of you know. But mostly I've worked for the man, like most North Dakotans. It doesn't matter what political party you ascribe to. In North Dakota, we like to work, and we work hard, and we take pride in it. And in North Dakota, maybe more than other places, I'm not sure, it makes us who we are to a large degree. If you take my example, for instance, of working for the same school for 31 years, you know when you're going to work, you know how to get there, it's part of the routine, you know who you're going to see when you get there, it becomes a big part of you. For me, teaching, seeing those students every day, relating to the parents, and with my fellow co-workers. And I can tell you right now that if I came one day and the doors were locked and I couldn't do what I do and be what I am, it would rock my world. And I'm glad that farmers and ranchers can't get locked out of their job. But I think if they were to think about that, if they couldn't be who they had been and do what they had done, they would not be happy. So if you get into that situation, like the last lockout, which is still going on, and the gates are locked, you have to question, who are you? Who am I? What is going to happen now? Am I going to have to sell the house? Am I going to have to move my kids out of school? Where am I going to look for a job? I've had some people in this chamber tell me they could have gotten a job for some of those people in 10 minutes, but it wasn't in their community, and it wasn't the same kind of job they had before. Unemployment compensation is meant and paid into the fund because it is meant to give people in that kind of a situation a hand up while they try and figure out what's happening with their life. We all understand that. Locked out workers were feeling like they were kind of punching in a dream because when they went to apply for another job, they were always asked, or often asked, in the last year and a half or 2 years, what's going to happen if you get called back? What if the lockout is settled? And of course, most of them, having been loyal for so many years and decades even to their former employer, said, I go back to work. So they weren't hired because it was such a temporary situation. It was tougher for them to go find a job. So this takes away the opportunity for locked out workers to use a fund that I believe was set up for the purpose of giving people a handout. You know, Mr. President, Every day, we hear from a person on your right that as today invoked the name of a man whose message was simple then and now. Help the needy, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and famous for North Dakota Nice, that's what we did for these last locked out workers. We brought them food. We brought them clothing. We brought them money. We brought their children Christmas gifts. I maintain that this would not have been as necessary had they been allowed to receive workmen's compensation when they were locked out. Instead, many of them found themselves darkening a door that they'd never darkened and didn't want to be in. They came in with their heads hung down. They went into their county social services because they had to feed their children and clothe them and heat their homes. I believe that helping people that are down is an important theme for North Dakotans. Mr. President, I believe that all of this is really what we should want to do. To me, it shouldn't be partisan. It's not about unions. It's about the future and how we treat our working people in this state, a state where we need workers. I like the people in this body because by and large, your senators are good people and nice people who mostly listen to that man who said to give the needy a hand up. Furthermore, I encourage all of us to listen to the inner self instead of the political self this one time. Anyone can defend this humanitarian vote on this amendment. Please reject this amendment.
Further discussion. Senator Heckman.
Mr. President, I request a recorded roll call vote on this amendment.
Are there 8 senators? Are there 8 senators in the body willing to support Senator Heckman's request for recorded roll call vote? There being 8 senators and more in support, we will proceed by way at that time of recorded roll call vote. Senator Heckman, do you wish to address the body as well? Senator Mathern.
Thank you, Mr. President. Following that eloquent presentation by the senator from District 20, I will just refer to the carrier of the bill's explanation. I would question the explanation of the reason for the bill or the amendment. I was involved in the review of the issue concerning the intent and concerning the clarification. As I reviewed the intent of the original legislation, the intent was in fact to cover unemployment benefits for anyone who was unable to work, whether it would be a layoff or a lockout. That was the original intent. The words weren't used because we didn't use words like that when the bill was originally passed. And I would say, too, it's important to remind ourselves that the Supreme Court, in fact, looked at the legislative history, looked at the intent of the legislature, and ruled that the intent of the legislature was, in fact, to cover workers that are locked out. So this is not a clarification of the law. This is not getting to the original intent. Adopting this amendment is changing the law. And for that reason, I would encourage us to defeat this amendment. Thank you.
Senator Andrist.
Well, Mr. President, members of the Senate, I sit on the IBL committee, and we heard this bill. And it was our intention to just really restate what the present law is right now. The reason we got into this bill in the first place is not because of any lockout that's ever occurred in North Dakota. I don't think we established that it's ever occurred, but it's for one that happened in Minnesota and affected North Dakota workers. if there's any workers at this facility in Minnesota who did not belong to, who would not have belonged to the union and could not have been involved in the labor dispute, and was inadvertent and was locked out by the company decision. I feel sorry for him, and I'd like to cover some benefit for him, but we can't know if that's true. Thankfully, I live a long ways away, so I don't know all the details of this labor dispute. But I do have a lot of experience with other people filing claims against the unemployment insurance system, and I was on a board of directors for a nonprofit hospital that was victimized by some of these claims at a time when the system was almost defunct because it was without funds to cover its liability. And so I think we should stick to the principle of staying out of labor disputes. And I don't think we should start opening the door to being involved in that, as we already have a court decision, which I understand is subject to appeal at this very moment, that will provide workers benefits for these North Dakota workers in this Minnesota facility. And this is going to cost every ratepayer, we were told, something like $26 a year for each employee, just to initially cover the back benefits that they will receive. So we thought we'd better protect our employers who are never going to be involved in a lockout. Most of my part of the state doesn't even have unions. We're begging for workers so much that we'd take any of those locked out workers if they'd come out west. And so I just think we should stay out of the business of trying to resolve, in providing encouragement for getting into labor disputes.
Senator Sinner.
Mr. President, I also sit on the Senate Industry, Business, and Labor Committee, and I'm going to beg to differ with my fellow senator from District 2. I've been going back and forth with the Director of Job Service for the last 24 hours trying to get an explanation of what would happen, what is the result of the past claim that has to be paid, and the number to me that I've gotten just this morning was somewhere between $10 and $12. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Senator Wardner.
Well, Mr. President, members of the Senate, I just want to remind you what our focus is here, and it is to clarify the language. In the court ruling, it was not unanimous. There were 2 justices that felt that the language needed to be clear, and they made note of that. And so even though the Supreme Court of North Dakota ruled in favor of the employees, and that's fine, that's what they're there for, but it is our job to make sure that we clarify the intent of the legislation, and that's what we're doing today.
Further discussion? Hearing none, the question is on the proposed amendment to House Bill 1112. Pursuant to Senate Rule 320, will proceed by way of recorded roll call vote. Again, the question being the proposed amendment to House Bill 1112. Would the Secretary please open the key? All senators have voted. Any senator wishing to change their vote? Secretary, close the key. Final tally on House Bill 1112, the amendments to House Bill 1112, rather, is 33 senators voting yea, 14 senators voting nay. The amendment is adopted. Continuing on the 6th order, Senate Concurrent Resolution 4030,